Jell-O. You know exactly what it is. That wobbling, translucent, artificially colored and flavored cube of sweetened gelatin. It shows up at potlucks, on hospital trays, and at children's birthday parties. You've eaten it your entire life and never once questioned it. But you should have. Gelatin is boiled animal bones, skin, and connective tissue. Collagen is extracted from slaughterhouse byproducts through prolonged acid or alkaline treatment, and then dried into a powder. That's the ingredient. That's exactly what you're eating when you eat Jell-O. The people who sold it to you knew exactly what it was. If American consumers had understood what gelatin really was, where it came from, what it was made of, they wouldn't have eaten it voluntarily. So they made sure people never thought about it. They invented fruit flavors to mask its origin. They targeted women's magazines with aspirational recipe content. They built door-to-door sales forces and distributed free cookbooks across towns all over America. They positioned gelatin as a sign of domestic elegance. They created gelatin molds filled with vegetables, gelatin salads, and convinced American housewives these were sophisticated dinner party dishes. They sold boiled bones to the wealthiest consumer market in the world. And they made those consumers feel refined for eating it. This is not a dessert story. This is the story of how a company took a product no one wanted, a slaughterhouse byproduct, and turned it into one of the most complete cultural installations in American food history. Gelatin is not a modern invention. It has been extracted from animal collagen for centuries. In medieval Europe, aspic, a savory gelatin dish made from reduced meat stock, was a luxury item. Producing a clear and stable gelatin from bones and cartilage required enormous labor. Hours of boiling, repeated straining, and clarification with egg whites to achieve the transparency that signaled quality. Only wealthy households with large kitchen staffs could do it. Gelatin dishes were status symbols. Serving a mold, glistening aspic told your guests you had both resources and skill. That association with luxury continued into the 19th century. In Victorian England, elaborate gelatin molds, fruit jellies, Charlotte Russes, blancmanges, were centerpieces of upper-class dining tables. The more complex the mold, the greater the signal of wealth and capability. The commercial potential of gelatin was identified in the mid-19th century. Manufacturers began producing powdered gelatin from industrially processed animal hides and bones. This removed the labor barrier. Anyone could now make gelatin with powder, hot water, and a mold. But there was a fundamental problem. It smelled like animals. Raw gelatin powder had a distinct odor, faint but unmistakably reminiscent of a slaughterhouse. Home cooks knew what it was and where it came from. Most found the experience unappetizing enough to avoid it. This was the problem Jell-O's creators had to solve. Not chemistry. Perception. Peter Cooper, inventor, industrialist, founder of Cooper Union, patented a gelatin dessert product. He did nothing with it. The patent expired. In Leroy, New York, a carpenter named Pearle Wait experimented with flavored gelatin. He added fruit flavoring to commercial gelatin powder. Strawberry, raspberry, orange, lemon. These flavors masked the animal origin of the base ingredient. They created a consumer-facing identity, fruit dessert, that had nothing to do with what the product actually was. Wait named it Jell-O. His wife May suggested the name. He tried to sell it. He failed. He had no distribution, no marketing budget, and no way to build awareness for a product that looked strange, behaved strangely, and was made from something people preferred not to think about. In 1899, he sold the Jell-O name and recipe to his neighbor orator Frank Woodward for $250. Woodward almost resold it immediately. In 1900, he reportedly offered the entire business to a colleague for $35. The offer was declined. That rejection became one of the most expensive decisions in American food business history. Because Woodward didn't give up. He hired a salesman. And the strategy that salesman implemented transformed a failed experiment into one of the most recognized food brands in the world. Around 1902, the strategy they used wasn't conventional advertising. They printed cookbooks. Small, illustrated recipe booklets filled with Jell-O recipes, mold desserts, layered parfaits, fruit jellies. The booklets were beautifully designed. They showed women serving elegant gelatin dishes in refined domestic settings. And they were completely free. Woodward's sales teams distributed them door to door. These weren't ads, they were gifts. Useful, attractive, free gifts, with one ingredient on every page. This was an early version of what Campbell's would later formalize as recipe-based advertising. But Jell-O did it first, directly in the consumer's kitchen. By 1906, millions of booklets were being distributed annually. They were printed in multiple languages. They reached immigrant communities. They featured endorsements from home economics experts. Each booklet made the same argument: gelatin is not strange. It is not a slaughterhouse byproduct. It is an ingredient used by sophisticated women to create elegant food. The product's biggest weakness, unfamiliarity, was turned into an education campaign. By 1906, Jell-O's annual sales reached $1 million. 4 years earlier, they were nearly zero. Jell-O's most sophisticated move was appropriating the Victorian association between gelatin and luxury. The message was precise. With Jell-O, any housewife could create the elegant desserts once reserved for the wealthy. Not an imitation. The real thing. Cheap. Fast. This was democratization as a sales strategy. The imagery reinforced it. Well-dressed women serving Jell-O at fine tables. Clean, prosperous households. Not thrift, aspiration. Then came the savory phase. In the 1930s and 40s, Jell-O expanded beyond dessert into main dishes. Savory gelatin salads. Tomato aspics. Chicken gelatin with vegetables suspended inside. Tuna gelatin rings. Lime gelatin with cream cheese and olives. These weren't fringe ideas. They were heavily promoted. In 1925, Postum Company acquired Jell-O. It later became General Foods. This gave Jell-O massive distribution and marketing power. The product became fully industrialized. Collagen was processed in large facilities. Flavors, colors, and textures were standardized. Jell-O became a hydrogel system, protein polymers that dissolve in hot water and form a three-dimensional network when cooled. This network traps water and creates a semi-solid structure. The result? That characteristic wobble. By the 1970s, savory gelatin dishes had fallen out of favor. Jell-O found a new identity: children. In 1974, Bill Cosby became the brand spokesperson. Jell-O was now fun, colorful, and aimed at kids. The product had been reinvented 3 times. Industrial novelty, domestic elegance. Elegant desserts, savory cooking medium. Sophisticated product, children's snack. The chemistry never changed. Only the narrative did. Gelatin is actually a remarkable substance. It has real applications. But Jell-O was never sold on what it is. It was sold on aspiration. On elegance. On hiding its true origin. Tuna suspended in lime gelatin is not tradition. It is marketing. And yet the product survived. Because it embedded itself in childhood memory. You associate Jell-O with comfort because you encountered it as a child. That was engineered. Boiled bones. Artificial fruit flavor. Industrial coloring. Dissolved in hot water and cooled into a wobbling structure. That's what you're eating. And you asked for seconds. Let us know in the comments what we should cover next. Thanks for watching.